Hi there, friend. This is episode number 37 of the Cowgirl Confessions podcast, featuring professional breakaway roper Sawyer Gilbert. This episode is brought to you by High Call Outfitters of Great Bend, Kansas, a high-fashion clothing boutique that carries women's, men's, and children's clothing and accessories. High Call Outfitters is a one-stop shop that has something for the entire family. It's where the West meets fashion. You can shop their entire collection in-store as well as online at www.highcalloutfitters.com. Hey y'all, and welcome. You're listening to the Cowgirl Confessions podcast. I'm your host, Dakota Dawn Johnson, small-town cowgirl with southern roots, blazing a trail as a Midwest ranch wife, mama, and businesswoman. The mission of Cowgirl Confessions is to share the wonderfully wild and western life stories of cowgirls from all walks of life. We'll talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to navigating careers, cowboys, kids, and cattle. Legendary cowgirl Dale Evans said it best: "Cowgirl is a pioneer spirit, a special brand of American courage. The cowgirl faces life head-on, lives by her own lights, and makes no excuses." Cowgirls take stands. They speak up. They defend the things they hold dear. A cowgirl might be a rancher, a barrel racer, a bull rider, or an actress, but she's just as likely to be a checker at the local Winn-Dixie, a full-time mother, a banker, an attorney, or an astronaut. If you're into wet saddle blankets, talks with God, buckets full of laughter, and the life lessons learned in the process, kick off your boots and settle in. I pray these stories encourage, empower, and give you just the leg up you need. Here's to embracing the cowgirl state of mind, no matter how wild and western life may get along the way. Hi there, friends. It is so good to be back with you, and let me just say, wow, what a ride. September makes 1 year since the first Cowgirl Confessions podcast aired, and this experience has been nothing short of wonderfully wild and western so far. I truly can't express how much I appreciate each and every one of you that have taken the time to join us, leave a review, and share this podcast with your friends. Our goal going forward is to continue sharing stories of incredibly inspiring women who wear the all-around cowgirl title and wear it well while managing careers, cowboys, kids, and cattle in the arena of life. I'm going to share a review before we jump into this episode because reviews really matter, y'all. They oftentimes help new listeners decide whether or not to hit play, and even how potential guests gauge whether or not to invest their time to be on the podcast. So here's a review from BM Horses. BM Horses shares, "Incredible motivation. There is a range of women that are interviewed who come from different backgrounds and now are in different careers and places in life. Most of them have seen a hard season and are now either grinding away or have seen the fruits of their labors. I mostly love hearing all the highs and lows, the good, the bad, and the ugly this podcast presents. One of my favorites." BM Horses, thank you so much for leaving a review. I do pray a blessing over you, your family, and your business. I pray that you get motivation from heaven to do everything God is asking you to do on this side of heaven in your business and through your business. What you're doing today, it matters. And I pray you continue forward with an all go and no woe mentality. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, on this episode, I catch up with professional breakaway roper Sawyer Gilbert of Buffalo, South Dakota. Sawyer Gilbert has become a household name in the breakaway world over the past few years, collecting big paychecks and experiences at the National Junior High Finals, Chris Neal's Rising Stars in Las Vegas, and the Junior American, just to name a few. Most recently, she walked away from Cheyenne Frontier Days as the 2021 Cowgirls Breakaway Roping Champion. And shortly after we recorded this, she won Pendleton as well. While Sawyer is the second Cheyenne Frontier Days Breakaway Roping Champion, she is the first woman to have those earnings count towards the WPRA and PRCA standings. On this episode, Sawyer shares what competing at the daddy of them all felt like while facing adversity and keeping a winner's mindset through it all. She lives by the motto, "Don't be afraid to give up good to be great," and is currently ranked number 2 in the WPRA World Standings. Sawyer, thank you so much for joining us and being on the podcast today. Just so encouraging to see a cowgirl like yourself that's going after it. I mean, you are a professional breakaway roper, and I just can't wait to hear more about your approach, your horsepower, and the things you have planned for the future. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Sawyer, you're currently residing in Texas, but that's not, where you grew up and where you call home, South Dakota cowgirl. So tell us a little bit about that transition helped you and your breakaway roping.
I grew up in Buffalo, South Dakota, which is a really small town in the corner of South Dakota, in the northwest corner of South Dakota, on a ranch with my family. And we horses have always been, I was always a part of growing up. I kind of grew up on the back of a horse. And so it was just, it was kind of just a lifestyle that we lived. And then as I got older, like, I think like probably like when I was in junior high, I started like kind of thinking like, what do I want to do after I want to go out of the state for college. I want to go and do something else. And then I kind of decided that I wanted to go to Texas, and I picked Weatherford just because if they say Stephenville is the cowboy capital of the world, Weatherford's 45 minutes away from it. And I was just like, that's where I'm going to go. And it was definitely in the heart of all jackpots, all rodeos, everything. And it was pretty eye-opening. I loved it. I love the weather down there. I love being, 45 minutes from almost any kind of jackpot you want to go to. And it really, I think it really elevated my breakaway roping career, just by time management and getting to rope every day and getting the jackpot every day and getting to be where all the tough people are, because iron sharpens iron. And that was definitely where all the best in the world were.
You can definitely put yourself among those people now. I mean, you had a huge win at Cheyenne Frontier Days this year, but you are no stranger to the winner's circle. At 19 years old, you have collected some big paychecks at some really well-known ropings already. And let's talk a little bit more about that, and maybe where, that first, what you would consider your first big win, when that happened, how you just keep your mental game strong as you enter into each new opportunity.
It's definitely a learning curve on how I keep my mental game strong. It's a daily struggle every day. I did say that like my very first big win would probably be when I was a 8th grader in junior high. We went to the national finals it was part of the high school association, the junior high association. We went to Lebanon, Tennessee, and I won the breakaway roping. And it was the first time I'd ever been to nationals. First time I'd ever been to Tennessee or that far east. And I ended up winning it on my paint horse that I still ride. And so I think that was kind of the first, win at like a national stage. And it was a pretty special moment. But I know that if you ask like anybody that was around me growing up, they'd always say that the year before that, my 7th grade year, I missed going to nationals by 1 point. I think that was the kind of the point in my life where I decided I was sick of losing and I was done, just being average. And I was kind of what changed my mind. I was willing to put in the work after that to be successful. And so that was, I think the summer of my 7th grade year going into my 8th grade year was kind of the summer that, I kind of came to terms with, this is what I'm going to do. And second is not going to be an option. So, that was kind of the thing that I try to remember when I'm, having a bad day or something with my mental game. I decided I picked this, and losing is not an option. Like, this is what I do. This is what I love to do. I just need to stay focused to keep doing it.
I love that. And I love how, I think it's easy for all of us at some point or another to think, well, maybe that person's too young to pick a direction yet, or maybe that person, I'm not sure if they're really committed yet or not. And I love how you just shared that, I mean, 7th grade, a pivotal point and getting you to where you are today. And just your mindset, just deciding like, okay, it was that loss that catapulted you. Not a loss, because obviously you were still doing awesome, just to miss going to nationals by 1 point. You weren't where you wanted to be, and you decided right then and there you weren't going to tolerate that. And so it just kind of gives me goosebumps thinking about it, because that's a winner's mentality, and you definitely have that. I was reading some articles and watching at Cheyenne, and I noticed that you were on two different horses, and so it's tough enough setup there at Cheyenne, when you're riding the same thing. You had a horse change in the middle of it, and if you can share with us more, just kind of the details, what it felt like, backing in the box there and swapping horses, and then what it felt like to hear your name called there at the end.
It was a little, I was a little nervous. I'm not gonna lie. It was, I showed up the day before for Slack, and I had my good Hollywood mare that I had rode all summer at the pro rodeos. She was doing awesome. I mean, that was her kind of setup. Like that was the same horse that I was 1-6 or 1-4, sorry, at Northside on 2 different times. I mean, like I can be fast on her, but she's so easy to rope on way down there. And so I was really excited to ride her. And I didn't really think about, like the whole daddy of them all roping, because I knew for a fact, I mean, that I would come to me eventually, and I knew people were going to talk about it, that they were going to get wound up, because this was Cheyenne. And so I didn't even go and look at the arena. I didn't even walk over to the arena. I just took care of my horses and like hung out at the stalls. I didn't want to look at it. And then Slack started really early, like 7 o'clock in the morning, and we were in the first section. And so I think I roped about 8:30 in the morning in Slack. And so it was early enough that I didn't really have time to get nervous for it, which was probably a good thing, because I probably would have. It was, when I backed in there, and I kind of was like, oh man, this is a big arena. And but everything was good. I just made sure that I saw my start, and I mean, that was kind of my game plan going into it, is I wanted to be safe at the barrier. I wanted to be behind the barrier, and then I wanted to rope my calf at the first shot, because especially when you get down there, you're trying to make up time with your rope and reach and stuff, but when you're that far down there, you can take an extra swing and just get them caught. And so that was my whole plan, is I just wanted to take the first shot that I had. And I rode my Sawyer for the Slack run, and that calf ran left. And when she came across the line, she switched leads and hit herself really bad, and ended up getting bone chips in her splint bone. And so right after that, right after we roped, the Days of 47 in Salt Lake City was going on for the WCRA, and my traveling partner and myself had both qualified for it. And so we were going to take my rig over there. And so right after we get done, we're unsaddling horses and trying to get everything taken care of, because we kind of got to go. And she was fine. Like, I always laugh that I always make fun of her for being such a baby, but she's really tough. And I wish she would have been a little less tough that day, because she was fine. She stood there for like 30 minutes while I'm packing all this stuff, and she just stood there and walked around fine. I loaded her in the trailer, and she's nickering for her buddy, and then we loaded my traveling partner's horse, and we took off. And when we got to Salt Lake about 7 hours later, she was 3-legged. And so that was probably the toughest time, because it wasn't even that it was about Cheyenne. It was like, my good horse is now 3-legged, and I am 7 hours away from the only other horse that I have. And so it was kind of, it was about an hour before the roping started that I was a little frazzled, and I was lucky enough that my traveling partner Jordan Joe Fabrizio let me ride her horse and whatever. But it was a good, I guess it was a good lesson learned, that if you have an extra horse, you should probably keep the extra horse in the trailer, even if you plan on don't riding him, because stuff like that happens.
Oh man, praise Jesus for incredible hauling partners that have your back. I'm so glad to hear that, she let you jump on, her horse. Now your mare, how is she doing now?
She's good. I left her at Outlaw Equine in Decatur, Texas when I went down there after Cheyenne, and they did surgery and everything went good, and now she's in rehab. As soon as when I get done at Salinas at the end of the month, I'm gonna go back there and pick her up and take her back to South Dakota. So hopefully I get to ride her. Hopefully I get to ride her in Vegas at the end of October for the women's championship.
Oh, I sure hope so. We'll be praying for that to happen, and that she'll heal up and be ready. So, okay, you rope at Salt Lake, and then y'all head back to Cheyenne. Is that how that went?
Yep. So we both rope at Salt Lake, and then we got to go back to Cheyenne because my traveling partner had it didn't go good the first day at Cheyenne at Slack, and so they had the consolation round the next day at Cheyenne, and so we drove all night back, and she roped the next morning, and I I helped her with her stuff, and then after that, like, we were done. Like, I didn't get drawn up until the last perf the next week. Our next pro rodeos were, we had like 5 days off or something in between that with nothing to do. And those guys were going to Nebraska to hang out with some friends. And my house in Buffalo is like 5 hours from Cheyenne. And so I kind of made the decision. I'm like, I don't really have another horse right at the moment. And so I'm going to go home and I'm going to practice, and I'm going to, kind of get my stuff lined out. I'm going to take this mare home, make sure she's all right. And let's, kind of hit the reset button a little bit. And so I went home, and I have my good paint horse who's been with me since the very beginning. And I'm sure that I could have rode him there. I just didn't want to because he gets real short, and I was just like, it's not going to be good. It's going to be really hard for me to reach on him. It's going to be really hard for me to run him down there. And I'd rode my brother's calf horse quite a few times, before we had got my Hollywood mare on the longer scores. And he was real fat. He's been turned out all summer. He was real fat. And I get home and I just kind of start riding him. And my brother was gone that day, and he told me, he's just like, what do you think you're doing? And I'm like, I'm going to need a horse. I'm going to need to borrow a horse. And if you're not using him, I would really like to use yours. And he was really good about it. So sometimes I drive him nuts because I'm always trying to ride all of his horses and stuff, but he was good about it. He knew that I needed him, and he knew that I would do good with him. And so he let me take him, and he kind of went on a crash course diet because he was big. He was real fat. And so we started roping on him every day, and I started trying to get some of the belly off of him, kind of got with him. And then we went back to Cheyenne I rode him actually at a pro rodeo in Nebraska the day before I went back to Cheyenne, and just trying to get with him again, because it had been 9 months since I'd been on him. And so he was just kind of how I remembered. I kind of fell right into the groove with him. Nothing really changed, because we went to the rodeo, and I think I was placing when I left, and I think I was like one hole out of the money by the time the rodeo ended. But it was just the win. I called it a win because my horse was working and I had something to ride. And before I left, my traveling partner wasn't going back to Cheyenne, and so I kind of asked. She had won it the first year, and so I kind of asked her what her advice was. And Raymond Hollenbaugh travels with her, and he was like, you just need to do your job, whatever you did the first time. Just make sure you see your start, and don't be afraid to take that one more swing, because just because you think you can reach that far doesn't mean that you should. And so that was kind of the mental side of it that I tried to prepare myself for, is try to hear that in my head before I run every calf. And I get back to Cheyenne, and it's pretty laid back. Like that was the first time in a while, a couple of months that I had been to a rodeo by myself, and I enjoyed it. I could do whatever I wanted. It was pretty laid back. It was pretty easy. And it all turned out for the best, I guess, but I was super thankful that that horse worked as good as he did, because he didn't really have to. He had a reason to be pretty fresh and not act that good. But it was pretty. I was pretty thankful for. I was just like, oh boy, I can't believe that my brother let me take this horse.
And now that horse, his name is Roger, right?
The horse that I rode at Cheyenne, the dun, is called Big Enough.
Big Enough. Okay, so Big Enough is your brother's horse, and then you've got your mare, and then is Roger your other gelding you're talking about?
Yes, Roger's the pain horse.
Okay. Well, I mean, phenomenal horsepower, and it's it's just so neat to see how far this sport has come, and like you mentioned earlier, I mean, in the breakaway, like you got to have more than one, because it just all happens so fast, and then you're entered so many places that if one little thing happens, it's great to have some other options to hop on that are your own, or if you have a setup like Cheyenne. And for those of you, I know we've got some listeners on here that, you may not be as familiar with the rodeo world, but the breakaway roping happens so fast. And a lot of times the start is really, really short. And that's where you get times like Sawyer was talking about earlier and at Northside, where she was 1.4 and things like that. But the setup at Cheyenne is a lot different from that. And Sawyer, can you share a little bit more about, from your perspective, what that setup is like?
It's really laid back. Like usually, like I always try to be as wound tight as you can be, sitting in the corner and still keep your horse in the corner, because you need all of it. Like it's when you nod your head and let your left hand down, it's all or nothing. Like you have to be completely dedicated to it and I mean, go for it. But Cheyenne is not that way. Like you nod, big shoot, calves are turning around looking back at their buddies, and you nod, and they, the slow open gait and no bang, and then like the calf starts walking out there, and then he starts trotting out there, and like now he's running off, and you still haven't left because you're waiting for him to get to the line, and you're like, am I going to catch this thing, or are we going to run him down 750 feet, or what's going to happen? And so it's one of the most nerve-wracking deals that I think I've seen thus far in my career, is when you sit on the fence at Cheyenne and you look down the arena, just like straight down the arena, and then you realize that like these huge like stands are on either side of you, and you realize that like every great cowboy ever has ran a calf or bucked a horse, or that has done something in this arena. It's like this is like where gold buckles come to play.
Yeah.
It's a pretty special feeling.
Absolutely. And hey, I mean, you've made history. You walked away from that event and really set yourself up to be up there in the standings. And if nothing else, I mean, I hope you tuck that in your pocket, just like you have with remembering what it felt like to go into nationals by one point, that you've tucked that in there too, to remind you just what a talented cowgirl you are.
Thank you.
Christmas is right around the corner, y'all, and I don't know about you, but I've reached a point in my life where I want to keep gift giving simple while meaningful. My friend Julie and her staff at High Call Outfitters are ready and eager to help you find that perfect gift for your special someone, or maybe even yourself. They have gift cards available and everything you could possibly need, whether you're looking for something to take you to the practice pen, the boardroom, or somewhere in between. They literally have it all to help you look sharp for any occasion. And for the entire month of October, you can use the coupon code SHIP FREE on any purchase of $75 or more to receive free shipping. That's right. Use coupon code SHIPFREE on any purchase of $75 or more to receive free shipping the entire month of October. Be sure to visit www.highcalloutfitters.com and let them know you heard about them on the Cowgirl Confessions podcast. Sawyer, what's next for you? What's on the horizon for the rest of 2021, and then really, thereafter that, what are some things you're looking forward to?
Try not to look forward too much. I'm trying not to look back, which is, I think, is even tougher. I'm trying to stay, real in the present.
Mm-hmm.
But especially with the horses, because I like making like these big elaborate plans of where I'm going to be on these days and how I'm going to do it, and then it never works. It's going to change 110 times before it happens. It doesn't matter if it's tomorrow. But I, like, I'm in Blackfoot, Idaho right now. I run one tonight, and then my traveling partner gets here on Tuesday, and she goes in the perf, and then we're somewhere every day after that for the next week and a half. And then Pendleton's coming up. We get to rope there in the slack, so I'm pretty excited for that.
Yeah.
Probably going to be a little bit of Cheyenne, probably not. A little different about the grass. I don't know what to think about the grass yet. But and then right after that, we go to Salinas, California for the tour finals, and then our season's over. And so I'm not looking forward to the season being over, but I'm looking forward to going home and like running practice pen calves, because I haven't done that. It feels like a lifetime now, like all summer. So go back to Texas and get my mare and try to just get everything regrouped and remember who I am.
Yeah, that sounds like an awesome plan. And now, through all your travels, Sawyer, I love hearing the different stories of how, women have just patchwork things together. As you mentioned, you and your hauling partner going places. You just kind of got to improvise sometimes. So what's the wildest thing you've ever had to patch together with duct tape, baling wire, or bungee cords?
I was going to a college rodeo, and I have a 5-horse bloomer trailer. It's like a 2004. It's fairly nice, but it is not by far the fanciest thing on the parking lot. And it has its moments. And I was having a special kind of day. And so I have a ramp on the back of the trailer, and like a month before this, my dad took my trailer to go and pick up a mattress when I was going to school. And so when we were down there in Texas, and he drug it off, like got off the highway, and it like kind of like drug on the back. It like cracked like the side on the very bottom, and I was like, it's just a crack, it's fine, whatever. And so I'm in Guthrie, Oklahoma at one of Chris Neal's ropings. I load my horses, and I have to kind of haul butt back to Texas. We were kind of in the panhandle of Texas going to a college rodeo, and I unload my horses, and I had 5 horses with me. I back the 5th horse off, and my ramp had like cracked the entire length on the back. It was just like the welds is cracked. And so it kind of looks like a diving board now, trying to get these horses in and out of this trailer. And right after the college rodeo, I had to take all of them, and I had to go back to Oklahoma for a jackpot the next morning. And I was in the short round. It was going to be late at night. Like, we weren't going to rope until 11. It was going to, I was by myself. I just had my horses. And then Raymond Hollenbaugh was the coach at WT. He was going to come with me, and we're going to both go up, and he was going to help Jordan the next day. And so it was, I didn't really know him as good as I knew him then. And so I'm like, like, I'm sure it's fine. I mean, it's welded on there. Like, welds don't break. It's fine, whatever. And I'm trying to load these horses, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get the last horse on, because like they kind of have to jump over the whole ramp into the trailer. It's quite the fiasco. And so he's like, are you sure you don't want to do something with that? I'm like, nah, it's fine. Like, it's still welded on. Be fine. I'm kind of embarrassed that like crap's falling off my trailer. And so we go to the gas station and he's like, that is not fine. I'm like, no, it's really not. And I didn't have a ratchet strap that was long enough to like kind of hold it all up there. But so I get an old breakaway rope and we tie it just up, and it wasn't broke enough yet that I could still latch it. And so it was still, on there. We drive to Oklahoma. We get there the next morning and it is way worse than I thought. It's way worse in the daylight. So I walk to Walmart and I get all these ratchet straps, and I'm like, I think there was probably 5 of these ratchet straps, like one holding everything up, one holding everything in, one sideways. There's like 5 ratchet straps holding this ramp on. And I kind of like like some hillbilly, strapping their horses into this trailer that tried to get home. I think that was the wildest thing. There's lots of stuff that's always broken on it, but I don't think I've had to fix any of it except for those.
Oh man, I think we all can relate in some way to that. And showing up somewhere and you feel like the Beverly Hillbillies. But whatever it takes, it's not what you show up in, it's what you leave with. That's one of my favorite things. So
well, that was somebody who told me, it's just like, it doesn't really matter. They were like trying to buy a trailer and I was just kind of eavesdropping on their conversation, and he said, he was like, it doesn't matter what trailer you have. Like, I've unloaded like the world's greatest calf horse out of the back of a 1-axle steel trailer that was supposed to have 2 axles on it. We just ran the first one off and just never put it back on. Like, it doesn't matter what trailer you have. If you back the baddest cat out of it, they're still going to work.
That's right. They're not picky about what they're riding in. We could all take a lesson or two from a horse, I think. So
yeah.
Well, Sawyer, I have so just enjoyed getting to hear more about your experiences as a breakaway roper. And this podcast is dedicated to just really sharing the cowgirl state of mind with women from all walks of life, and men as well. We've got some guys out there that listen too, and I don't want to forget them. But what does the phrase cowgirl state of mind mean to you?
I'm glad that you sent these questions before I had to answer, because it's a little early for me, not gonna lie. And when I was reading them, I'm like, that is a good question that I do not know the answer to. I'm gonna have to think about this. And so I don't know. I kind of think that the cowgirl state of mind is closer to like a personal code that you live by. And it doesn't have to be, like they can come up with a saying for the, all cowgirls. But I think just to me, like the cowgirl state of mind is my own personal code that I live by, or I try to do every day. Like just, like work ethic, being humble, always having like a clear conscience or no conscience. That was one of the lessons that I'm trying to learn a little more of this year, because you can't have a memory out here. You can't have it's not that you can't have a conscience, but you can't take stuff from outside the arena and try to bring it in the arena, because it has no spot for that. And so just stuff like that, trying just to be honest with yourself and honest with the people that you care about, just living by those kind of rules and making sure that you're a good human being, because it's tough enough. You need to remember who you are at all times.
So good. And for a question you thought you didn't have an answer for, girlfriend, you nailed that one. I mean, I love it. Well, hey, Sawyer, thank you again for your time today. We're wishing you the best of luck, and all that you've got coming up the rest of this year, and just continue to be present where you're at right now.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for spending your time with me on the Cowgirl Confessions podcast. I'm so glad y'all stopped by. If you could take a moment to share this episode and tag us on social media, I'd be happier than a cowgirl in a sea of buy one, get one vintage turquoise. Subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode. New episodes will be released bi-monthly. Please leave us a review if you feel so led by going to iTunes. Your feedback will really help us breed the idea of grabbing life by the horns with a cowgirl state of mind into women across the globe. Some that may have never even had the privilege to throw their leg over a horse, but could most certainly use the cowgirl state of mind while navigating life. Thanks again, y'all. Until next time, keep pursuing your dreams with that all go and no woe mentality. Remember, you're writing a story that's worth saddling up for, sister.